right, so good morning, everyone. I'll show you what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna watch a couple of videos. We're gonna start going through the PowerPoints for chapter 1. And then have a little group activity planned for the end of class that will involve a little bit of research on your part. So like I had mentioned before, chapter 1 is a little dry, especially for those of us that like the math, which chances are if you're in an accounting class, you enjoy numbers and math. But the first chapter here, we are going to go through some information about laws and kind of get some background on what the payroll function involves, how it interacts with other parts of an organization. So no math quite yet, but we'll get all of that stuff under our belt. And like I said, we're going to watch a couple of videos to start us out, to give us that little introduction. And then at the very end here, I will have you do a little research project together in your group. So before we get started today, are there any questions? Has everybody been able to get their access codes for Cengage? If you, okay, maybe I should do a raise your hands question. So if you have not gotten your access code for Cengage, raise your hand. Okay, so I've got a few of you, maybe 6 or 7 of you, and is that because you haven't gone to get it yet, or it hasn't arrived? Okay, so some of you, it's your, you got to take that initiative, that step to get over there and get it done. For those of you who have ordered it but it hasn't arrived yet, raise your hand up so I can see them, please. So just a couple of you. Okay, when did you order? Thursday? Okay. Yesterday? Okay. So, and did they say it was going to be, how were you going to receive it? You don't know? Is it like mailed on a piece of paper, or is it, we don't know? Mail? Say that again, I'm sorry.
The paper book.
Okay, so what you need to do in the meantime, and hopefully you've already done this, everybody gets I don't know if it's 7 days or 10 days, 7 to 10 day free trial. So you go in there, click on the link in Canvas, and it will have you set up your account. Once you get that access code, you can then enter it in, and then it will just continue. Okay, so you'll still save, it will still save all of your work. Okay, if you do get to the point though, where you're a day or two away from that trial period expiring and you still don't have your access code, let me know. Or actually, better yet, talk to the bookstore, call them, go pound on their desks. If you still aren't getting any response from them, then come to me about it, okay? Because I want to make sure you get all of that taken care of. And then for those of you who wanted the paper copy, and I know some of you, it looks like maybe 1 or 2 of you have got the paper copy, you can order that separately, and that's of the book. But the access code gives you access to the assignments and to the ebook. So if you're okay reading on a computer screen or a tablet or your phone, whatever manner you want to read it, that's fine. You don't have to have the paper copy, but if you prefer, there is that. It ain't cheap, but it might be available in a rental too. So Harry, did you get it as a rental? Yeah, okay. So that's probably a lot less expensive to do it that way. Just don't write in it when you're doing that. All right, any other questions about the materials or anything? So that Cengage code will give you, if you have other classes that are using Cengage and you get the 4-month code, that will give you access during this semester for all of your classes. If you get the 12-month code and you have Cengage next semester as well, or you're going to take classes next summer, then it will give you access to that. I don't think there are any other accounting classes that use Cengage, but there may be there probably are other classes in other departments that use Cengage as well. All right. If there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and let me see if this, let me get it so that we can. I have to fiddle with the volume here real quick. Okay, that's not it. Hang on. There we go. Can everybody see that okay, or do I need to dim the lights? Nobody's gonna answer me? It's okay? You can see it? Okay, perfect, thank you. I'll just make up answers if you don't answer me, so. All right.
Our job here in payroll is to pay all Adams County employees. It's a very daunting task. It really is our job to be the last person to check your paycheck to make sure everything's accurate.
Some months are more difficult than others, depending on what kind of projects we have going on, whether it's the audit time, W-2 time, those months are pretty challenging. W-4s, direct deposits, just their new hire information in general to input. Then we'll have the retros throughout the month, the termination paperwork to pay attention to. Each day is something different.
We have to make sure that you're taxed properly. We have garnishments, levies, child supports that come out. And I think a lot of people do have the misconception that, you know, we only have a monthly payroll, so what do we do the rest of the month? And they don't realize that we have a ton of things to do all month long. We have about 1,900 employees, and last year we paid about 113 million in gross wages and about 30 million in taxes. So our number one goal is the accuracy of the paychecks, because money is very personal to everyone, and so it's very important to us to get everyone paid accurately.
I feel like we make a huge impact on the employees just because of the fact that they are working to pay their bills and to have fun in life. So I feel like if we don't do our job well and accurately, that will impact them. People's money is important to them, and I want to make sure that we pay them correctly. When we have a quiet payday, that's when it's probably the most rewarding, because then we know that there's no questions on the checks. It's not just the push of a button to push a check through the system. It takes a lot of work in prepping and processing. It's not just cut me a check and it's done. It's a process. The process of it, I guess, is giving yourself enough time to do those checks and rechecks and triple checks and everything, just to be sure we have it correct when we do hit that button.
In payroll, there really is no room for error. It's a lot of people and a lot of little details to check in such a small window. And during payroll week, we want our focus to be that we're getting all those checks and things looked at before you get your check.
We catch a lot of the little things. To have that human eye looking at it, it catches any errors that technology may not. And when you have something that just clicks and just works and everything kind of flows through how it's supposed to, it's the most amazing feeling, because if you're off, goodness, by 2 pennies, those 2 pennies can give you a headache for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, even a day sometimes. So when things work, it makes life a lot easier.
Numbers, it's a lot about the numbers, but what's different for us is it's a lot about the people and the employees, and it's about helping them, and that's what makes us a little bit different. It really takes all of us to get it all done. Everyone is on the same page as far as the importance of getting a payroll out.
It's been extremely nice coming to work with a team like that.
The most rewarding is the connections that we have, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
When you get those people that say thanks for paying you, that always makes it more fun, a little bit more rewarding.
All right, So this is obviously a large organization, a county, and so they mentioned 1,900 employees, and it looked like maybe a team of maybe 4 or so people that are processing all of that payroll information. You know, the payroll departments come in all shapes and sizes. There are, you know, they can be very small, just one person doing the payroll for a smaller organization. They can be huge, where they've got dozens of employees working in payroll. Think about your principal financial groups. Think about your Walmarts. Think about, you know, those big organizations that have thousands and thousands of employees, and they are processing the payroll for all of those people in multiple jurisdictions with different laws, different states having different requirements, some of them in different countries as well, and different requirements for those countries. So it can be a rather complex undertaking. And as they mentioned in the video, it is very detail oriented. So if you're expecting a paycheck, and you're expecting your paycheck to be $1,500, and you get a paycheck and it's $1,200, as an employee, what do? You get kind of mad, right? Because you were expecting a different amount. So it's really important for those individuals in the payroll capacity to be accurate and to double check, triple check, quadruple check all of that information before it goes out. Yes, software is used. Yes, you know, has increased the efficiency and the accuracy of payroll tremendously. However, have you ever heard the phrase garbage in, garbage out? Yeah. So if you don't put the correct information in, and you don't know what the correct information is that you're putting into the system, then whatever it is that you're going to get out of the system is going to be incorrect. So it's crucial for us to understand everything that goes into it, and all the calculations, so that we can double check that it is accurate. I worked in payroll in a CPA firm when I was a practicing CPA. I did mostly income tax work, but I also helped out with the payroll function there when it was necessary. And we had kind of a separate payroll department that we had one full-time employee and one part-time employee, and they managed the payroll for about 20 different small businesses. So small businesses would hire us to process their payroll for them. And I can tell you that it's nonstop. It is never ending. It is, as soon as you finish with one payroll cycle, especially when you're working in an organization like that where you've got 20 different companies, and that's really a small number. I mean, if you think about the ADPs of the world, I don't know if you've heard of ADP, they're a large payroll processor, or the Paychecks of the world, another well-known payroll processor, where they are constantly adjusting to multiple schedules, because not every company is on the same schedule. But it's a demanding job, but it's also very rewarding, because as they mentioned, you're working directly with the employees. You know, that's not always the case. If you're in the accounting department, chances are you're not working directly with a bunch of you're working with people within your department, but you're not interacting with other people in maybe the purchasing department or the sales department or the human resources. You probably are, but in the various departments. But payroll touches every single department within an organization. So in addition to being detail oriented, having people skills is also very important, because you've got to be understanding of the needs of those employees, right? So hopefully some of you will come out of this class. I don't expect all of you to come out of this class wanting to go into payroll. I know a lot of people take this class because it's part of the program, and so that's why they're here. They've got to take it. But I usually do have some students at the end of this class who are really interested in moving on in the profession, because there are a lot of opportunities. There still is a lot of demand for individuals who have experience in payroll, and there's all types of different jobs that are available out there, like I said, in small organizations or in large organizations. So any comments, questions? Yeah.
It's like, because I know when I was first getting into like the accounting program, they said there was like certificates you could get along
Yes.
with payroll. Like,
Payroll certificate is one of them. Yes, we have a payroll certificate program. And by the way, I don't know if any of you have been informed of this. If you're here pursuing your AAS degree, your associates, the 2-year accounting degree, or the 1-year accounting diploma, along the way, you actually do take classes for those other sub-certificates. And you can apply for them once you've taken the classes that are required for them. It doesn't cost you any extra. You just tell the registrar or whoever provides those certifications that you've completed the requirements for it, and then bang, you've got another certificate that you can put on your resume. So when you finish here, if you are doing your 2-year associate's degree in the specialist program, you're going to end up as well with the qualifications for the accounting and bookkeeping diploma, for the accounting and bookkeeping certificate, for the payroll certificate, and I think there's still the entrepreneurship certificate. I'm not sure if that one's still on, but you'd be able to apply for all of those and put all of those on your resume. Okay, so make sure as you're going through and you talk to your advisors about that stuff that you do that. Yep.
Is that like a class that you register for?
The certificates?
Yeah.
It's part of, the certificates, each of the classes are part of the certificate. So once you complete the classes that are within the certificate, so like the payroll certificate, I think is 4 classes. And I can't remember, I know it's payroll and payroll certification review, maybe QuickBooks, and I can't remember what the other one is. But once you've completed those classes, you would then qualify to get that certificate, even though you don't yet have the 2 years done for the associate's degree. You still would qualify for that. So I highly encourage that. It's a good question. Any other questions about that? I'm glad you brought that up, Kayla. Yeah. I try to remember at some point in the semester to mention that to students, especially, first-year students, because they're not really aware that it's kind of a bonus that you can get that as well. Any other questions, observations? And we are going to talk about some of the other certifications, the separate certifications for payroll itself. There's an organization, the American Payroll Association, that certifies individuals in payroll. There's kind of an introductory certification, the Fundamental Payroll Certificate, which one of our classes, Payroll Certification Review, I know I'm using these certification and payroll and using these words repeatedly here, but the Payroll Certification Review class is geared toward preparing to take that exam. Many students will complete the exam. They have no intention of actually taking, or will complete the class, they have no intention of actually taking the exam, and that's fine. It is one of those, it counts toward the associate's degree. But I have had a lot of students as well who do sit for the exam. So we have a class that's specifically designed for those who are interested in that fundamental payroll certificate, and I'm going to talk more about that. And then there's a more advanced certificate that the American Payroll Association offers, the CPP, Certified Payroll Professional. Those individuals are more advanced. They're people who are going to be into management of payroll, and you do have to have some experience in payroll before you can apply for that certificate. But that's also something that long term, if you're interested in payroll, that you can look at. All those certificates, they set you apart from others, right? If there are 2 applicants for a payroll position and you come in with a payroll certificate from DMAC and then also having passed the fundamental payroll certificate certification exam, that puts you ahead of somebody who just has, just maybe has some experience or just has the associate's degree. Okay, so lots and lots of opportunities there. Other questions? Nope. All right, so let's start looking at, see, I'm already 8 minutes behind on my schedule. All right, so these are our, let's start looking at the PowerPoints and go through the chapter. So in this chapter, like I said, this is a lot of overview. We're going to talk about some laws. We're going to identify the various laws that affect employers in their payroll operations. Now keep in mind that when we're talking about payroll, we are looking at pretty much everything from the employer's perspective. the employer who's going to be paying the employees. Obviously, we want to keep employee welfare in mind, and a lot of the laws that we're going to cover are designed to do that, to protect employees. But when we're looking at payroll in this class, it is from the employer's perspective. And within that, we're going to look at the record-keeping requirements that are necessary for payroll. We're going to talk about employment procedures that are followed in a human resources department. Now, this is not a human resources class. There are separate human resources classes that are offered here at DMAC, but because the payroll department works so closely with human resources, we are going to talk about what their functions, a little overview of what their functions are. We're also going to identify certain personnel records that are used by businesses, both in the hiring and maintenance of employees, as well as termination of employees. 2 payroll-centered records that we are going to focus on, and this is something that we're going to focus on throughout the semester. You're going to become very familiar with these 2 types of records, are the payroll register and the employee earnings record. These 2 are used in the payroll function for multiple purposes. You can think of, the spokes on a bicycle, and those 2 records are at the middle of those spokes, and a lot of information flows out from them, and it's used for various record keeping requirements, for the preparation of payroll, for end of the year reporting, and so on. Okay, so you'll become very familiar with those, especially those 2 types of records. Yeah.
Real quick, do we have access to these?
Yes, these PowerPoints are on Canvas, so you can get them. Oh, let's see if I can. I'm gonna have to open Canvas again so I can.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'll show you where they are. So you can print them out. You can download them. Ignore them. Do whatever you want. Well, I recommend you don't ignore them, but let's see. So under the modules, I think I have them all together. So right up here at the top, miscellaneous information and resources.
Okay.
You got them right there.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So yeah, if you want to follow along, and again, I've got this one that I linked to is within our agenda for today. Okay. All right. So about the payroll profession. So they're required to comply with multiple regulations, both federal regulations and state regulations, and there could also be smaller jurisdictions that govern how payroll is performed. So city regulations, county regulations, depending upon the state that you're in. Now, luckily, we're in Iowa. We don't have any separate county income taxes or city income taxes, so we don't have to deal with that. But if you're working for a payroll department that has employees in, let's say, Ohio has all kinds of taxes. And we're talking, income taxes. So there are school district income taxes. There are county income taxes. There are city income taxes. So they're all if you've got an employee in Ohio, you're going to be dealing with multiple jurisdictions and maintaining the records according to the rules of each of those individual jurisdictions. So it can get pretty complex. Here, like I said, in Iowa, we just really have to worry about state regulations and federal regulations. So we keep it relatively simple here. Lots of different types of professions within the payroll function, starting from the payroll clerk, which would be the individual who is entering the data into the software. This would be a person who, if you're just starting out in payroll, that's probably where you're going to start out, is as a payroll clerk. And it's a great place to start out because it gives you insight into how the actual, just the nuts and bolts of how we enter that information, how that payroll information then is used to generate the paychecks as well as for other information. But there are also lots of levels within or above the payroll clerk. So you'd have middle managers and you would have senior payroll managers, right up to ultimately they probably report to the CFO of a company, okay, the chief financial officer. Average salary for a manager, this was in 2023. This was from Robert Half, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with that organization, but they do all sorts of salary surveys on every type of position there is out there. Average salary for a payroll manager would be $83,500. Average salary for a payroll clerk, $52,750. That is amazing. I can tell you, when I started teaching this class, this is my 7th year. When I started teaching this class, this was about $20,000 less. This position has increased in salary substantially because there is so much demand for it. And there really aren't enough qualified people to fill that demand. American Payroll Association is a professional organization. It's not required to be a member. However, those who are looking to advance their careers, it's always good to be members of professional organizations. And the American Payroll Association is the main payroll professional organization in the U.S. They provide all sorts of continuing education for payroll professionals. They provide the certification, that fundamental payroll certificate, as well as the certified payroll professional certificate. They have journals, they have magazines. You know, if you're in the payroll profession, membership in that organization is probably crucial. They also put together a code of ethics. So members who are part of the American Payroll Association have to abide by this code of ethics, which we're going to look at here. Now, a lot of it is pretty common sense stuff, but ethics is a big deal, and especially within payroll. You know, we're talking about a function that has access to a lot of funds, right? I think I had mentioned last week that payroll is usually the single largest expense category on an income statement of any company, regardless of the size of that company. And so there is, there's opportunity, obviously, for some nefarious actors to get their hands on the till. And it happens. There are all sorts of different fraud schemes that involve payroll. Ghost employees is one of them. That's where you set up an employee that, so my name's Kelly Murphy. Maybe I'll set up an employee with the name Kay Westfall. Close enough so that I could still use any paychecks or have any amounts deposited to an account that has Kelly Westfall Murphy on the account. So that's a ghost employee. Kay Westfall doesn't actually exist, but Kelly Murphy has decided that she's going to create this ghost employee and take a second paycheck. So there are lots of different schemes along those lines. And the Code of Ethics, of course, is devised to try and reduce incidences of that. This is a profession that requires a great deal of honesty and integrity. So some of these, the different points here for the Code of Ethics, be mindful of the personal aspect of the payroll relationship between the employer and employee. Ensure that harmony is maintained through constant concern for the payroll professional's fellow employees. So just be nice to the other employees, right? Treat them with respect. Strive for perfect compliance, accuracy, and timeliness of all activities. So like I had mentioned, extremely important to be accurate, but also timeliness is of great concern with all of this, all sorts of deadlines. So if you are a deadline-driven person, this is the profession for you. Not everybody is, but this is a great profession for those who need or want deadlines. Keep abreast of the state of the payroll art with regard to developments in payroll technology, so keeping on top of different software applications that are available. Be current with legislative developments and actions on the part of regulatory bodies as they affect payroll. So that would be keeping up on new laws that are implemented either at the state level or at the federal level. Maintain absolute confidentiality within the payroll within the procedures of the employer. Obviously, payroll individuals who are privy to payroll information are privy to very very delicate information. You know, if I have if I'm preparing Angela's payroll, I know where she lives. I know how many children she has. I know what her social security number is. I know how much she is making. I know whether she's married or not. I know a lot of information that I could use to do some really bad things to Angela, right? So it is necessary to maintain confidentiality, because as well as me knowing that information and doing something bad with it, I could give it to somebody else and they could do something bad with it. So that confidentiality is extremely important. Refrain from using the association, the American Payroll Association activities for personal interest or financial gain. So in that one, they're just saying don't go to our conferences and just look for business for yourself. You know, it's supposed to be a networking opportunity with a lot of give and take. Don't just go there with your own self-interest in mind. Take one's commitment to the enhancement of one's professional abilities through the resources of the American Payroll Association. This is their way of saying, pay for our courses. When you need your continuing education, get it through us, right? And then support one's fellow payroll professionals, both within and outside of one's organization. Keep those relationships with other payroll professionals. Keep them up to date and keep them positive. Okay, so that's the code of ethics. Again, this is not something that if you become a fundamental payroll certificate holder or a certified payroll professional, yes, you'll probably have to sign something saying that you will abide by this code of ethics. If you're not a member, or if you're a member of the American Payroll Association, right? If you're not, obviously you're not required. These are not laws. This is just a code of ethics that is put together by a professional organization, but it's a great guideline. You know, it would be nice to see organizations adopt similar codes of ethics for different departments, and payroll in particular. Right? Any questions about those? Yes, there is a test question on the code of ethics. All right, so let's start talking about some of these laws here that affect payroll. First one is a biggie. And by the way, these follow with our chapters. We're going to be focusing on each of these laws in chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5. Remember, chapter 6 is our accounting chapter, where we're going to do journal entries and integrate our payroll information into the financial accounting system. So in chapter 2, we're going to go into a lot more detail on what's called the FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act. This is a federal law. It is enforced by the U.S. Department of Labor. And this is the law. It's often known as the minimum wage law, overtime law. It governs and enforces those laws that are passed by Congress. It enforces those laws. So the minimum wage, which is $7.25 an hour, the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25 an hour, that enforcement, what am I trying to say? So the Department of Labor enforces it through the FLSA. Overtime laws as well. We all know about, if you work more than 40 hours a week, you should get paid overtime for that. Well, that is a federal law. That federal law as well is defined under the FLSA. Again, we're going to go into a lot more detail on that in chapter 2, but we'll go a little bit deeper here in this first chapter 2. Federal Insurance Contributions Act, otherwise known as FICA. If anybody's ever received a paycheck, who's received a paycheck? Yeah, most of you. You know that FICA line. Actually, it's 2 lines. Consists of Social Security tax and Medicare tax. Who is FICA and why is he taking all my money? So the Federal Insurance Contributions Act is a biggie. We're going to talk about that in chapter 3, the calculation of Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes from a withholding standpoint. We're not really going to talk about the benefits. We'll go into a little bit on the benefits and what those taxes are used for. They're not just taking them for nothing, although sometimes it's questionable whether that's actually happening. But they do use those benefits. Once those taxes are withheld, those amounts are used to provide certain benefits. We'll just go into a very basic level on that. Income tax withholding laws. So, and again, we're gonna look at it from the federal level, as well as we're gonna take a peek at what Iowa does. And Iowa is in the midst of some big changes with regard to income tax. We are moving from what's called a progressive tax system, which is the more you make, the more they take. So once your income gets higher, as it gets to higher levels, your income tax rate gets higher. Iowa is moving to a flat tax where there will be one tax rate. And they're actually moving, originally, I think it was supposed to be implemented in 2027, but they have moved that up. I don't know if it's to 2025 or 2026, but everybody will pay one single income tax rate. It will simplify it substantially. But for federal purposes, we do have that progressive tax system. The more you make, the more they take. So we're going to talk about the calculation of that, what types of income are subject to the withholding. When you get to the point where you're really interested in income taxes and you're going to take income tax accounting, I will look forward to seeing you in that class. I teach that class. That's one of my favorite classes to teach. So from our perspective in this class, though, we're looking at it from a withholding standpoint. How much does the employer have to withhold from income tax, from paychecks? And then chapter 5, we're going to look at unemployment taxes. A lot of students are really not all that familiar with unemployment taxes because it's not something that, as an employee, you really see all that much. Maybe you've received some unemployment benefits. I know I've had students in the past who've received the benefits, but most students aren't really familiar with how those benefits, where those funds come from, how they're collected. So we're going to talk about that in chapter 5, but there are specific laws that go along with each of these types of taxes. Now these are tax laws right here. For the most, Fair Labor Standards Act is sort of a tax law. It's also a fair labor law, what they call a fair labor law, but these are for the most part tax laws. We also have these called fair employment laws, where laws that don't necessarily specifically address taxes or wages, but what they address is discrimination, anti-discrimination laws for the most part. So we've got the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which is a big one. That was kind of the biggie. Age Discrimination and Employment Act, Americans with Disabilities Act, these are just a few, some of them that we're going to go through. Maybe you've heard of them. A lot. These three you can probably figure out, at least the last two, what they deal with, but we're going to go into more detail about those. And then there are some other federal laws, and states as well have individual fair employment laws. So employees in California may be protected by certain fair employment laws that employees in Iowa are not protected by. Right? It is each state is going to do things differently with regard to those laws. All right. So let's start out here. Let me see what my timing looks like. Hold on. How far did I want to go here today? Okay, I already talked about that. All right. So let's look at the Fair Labor Standards Act in a little bit more detail.